let's dive deeper and clear up some facts, because it's time we had a proper response to those Nigerians who keep saying South Africans don't own their land. I've heard this way too many times on TikTok lives and Twitter, and I've noticed many of our fellow patriots don't know how to clap back at this. But don't worry, I've done the homework for you, and you're gonna love this. It's a total game changer. Here's the tea. 100% of Nigerians don't own the land in Nigeria. Yeah, not one of them has a title deed. This is not some made-up fact. It's the real deal over there. So the next time someone tries to throw shade at us about land ownership, you'll have the perfect comeback. And hey, I won't drag this out or make it complicated. Just keep the year 1978 in mind, because that's when things started getting interesting. We all know Nigeria was colonized, right? The British Empire invaded in the 19th century, taking over the country until October 1st, 1960. When the Brits rolled in, they didn't waste any time putting their own spin on land ownership. They treated Nigeria like one big monopoly game. They came in, planted their flag, and decided that most of the land belonged to the crown. In 1900, they passed the Crown Lands Ordinance, which pretty much let them hand out land like it was party favors. Except Nigerians weren't even invited to the party. Imagine living on your family's land for generations and then being told it's not really yours anymore. It's like showing up to your own house and being told, sorry, you don't own this anymore, but you can rent it if you're nice. That's exactly how it went down for Nigerians back then. They were reduced to tenants on their own land because of British laws. After World War I, in 1914, the British got this idea to merge northern and southern Nigeria. They thought it would be more efficient, but it was like mixing oil and water. It just didn't work. The north is where Boko Haram is causing chaos today, so you can imagine the cultural and tribal clashes back then. The British took advantage of this disunity, enforcing a single law that said all land belonged to the empire. Even though Nigerians could stay on their land, the Brits were still calling the shots. It's like they were saying, you can live in your own house, but don't forget who the landlord is. From 1945 to 1960, things started to shift a bit. Britain began to retreat, loosening its grip, and handed over some land responsibilities to local chiefs. It was like giving someone the remote control, but keeping all the power buttons locked. Nothing really changed. Chiefs became like liaison officers, but their hands were tied, and everything still had to go through the British offices. This was also when corruption started creeping in. Chiefs were handing out land to their favorites, and the rest of the people suffered. It was like letting the fox guard the hen house. Traditional leaders, who were supposed to help, were playing favorites and messing things up even more. Meanwhile, patriotic movements were buzzing like angry bees, demanding an end to this land dispossession. They pushed back hard, and eventually, Britain had no choice but to leave. But the damage was done, and corruption didn't just stop because the Brits left. Nigerians were left with a chaotic mess, and it didn't help that different movements couldn't agree on the way forward. Some wanted modernization, while others were clinging to the old ways. This tug of war left the country in shambles, and even sparked civil wars, with people fighting each other over land and power. Their history is filled with heartbreak, and honestly, Britain owes Nigeria an apology and reparations for the mess they created. It's going to take generations, maybe even centuries, to fix the damage and get those tribes to get along again. The next time someone tries to tell you that we South Africans don't own our land, you can hit them back with the truth about Nigeria's land situation. It's not all sunshine and roses over there either. Keep these facts handy, and you'll be more than ready to shut down any debate that comes your way.
Oh my God.
Fast forward to 1978, Patriots and Nigeria decided to flip the script with the Land Use Act. It was like pressing the reset button on land ownership and turning the whole game upside down. Before this, owning land was like a free-for-all. People could grab land like it was a buffet, with the freehold system letting folks have full control over their plots. But then, the Land Use Act came in and slammed the brakes. Suddenly, the freehold system was scrapped, and all land ownership got centralized under state governments. Imagine being told that your backyard, Your little slice of heaven that you thought was yours to keep now needed to be managed by some local official. That's what happened. Overnight, state governments became the gatekeepers of who could use or own land. The idea behind this act was to make things simpler, but instead, it threw everyone into a state of confusion and frustration. The states got the power to allocate land, and while that might sound good on paper, it was like giving a teenager the keys to a sports car with no driving lessons. Bureaucratic red tape, corruption, and favoritism turned land allocation into a chaotic circus. For many Nigerians, it felt like they were promised a smooth ride, only to find themselves stuck in a traffic jam with no clear direction, trying to navigate a system that felt more like a trap than a solution. Imagine the heartbreak. Patriots, families who had lived on their land for generations, whose ancestors had bled and toiled on that soil, suddenly found themselves at the mercy of state officials who played favorites or demanded bribes just to keep things moving. It's like watching the foundation of your life crumble before your eyes. Families who once felt secure were now trapped in a maze of endless paperwork and broken promises with no clear path to truly owning the land they had always believed was theirs. Picture the old men and women who had seen their parents and grandparents work the land, now standing in line, begging for a piece of paper that says they have the right to stay on land they've called home for centuries. It's enough to break anyone's spirit. For those who thought they could finally build a home, a future on their own terms, it must have felt like the ultimate betrayal. They were left stuck in a system that didn't care about their struggles or their dreams and turned what should have been a straightforward process into a nightmare. Patriots, this wasn't just about changing some laws. It was a punch in the gut to every Nigerian who believed in the dream of owning a piece of their homeland. It was supposed to be about fairness and making things accessible, but instead, it became a cruel game where the rules kept changing, and the prize was always out of reach. This act didn't just mess with land ownership. It tore apart what land means to a person, to a family, to a community. The Land Use Act didn't just take land. It took away a sense of belonging, a piece of identity, and left countless Nigerians feeling lost in a system that was supposed to be theirs to understand. So patriots, remember this. When we talk about land, it's not just about boundaries and legal documents. It's about heritage, about home, and about the soul of a nation that deserves better than to be left fighting for something that should have always been theirs. Since the Land Use Act kicked in back in 1978, the states in Nigeria have been calling the shots on land allocation, kind of like a high school principal handing out lockers. It was supposed to streamline the process, but in reality, it often felt like trying to get a parking spot in a packed lot. Only in this case, the parking spots are pieces of land, and the rules keep changing based on who's in charge. Debates about land ownership and reforms have dragged on like a never-ending soap opera. Everyone's got their own idea of what should be done, but getting things sorted out is like trying to build furniture without a manual. Traditional leaders, politicians, and everyday folks are all chiming in, but finding a consensus is like herding cats. It's a constant tug of war between sticking with old traditions and pushing for modern solutions, and no one seems to agree on the best way forward. Implementing the Land Use Act has been a whole other struggle. The goal was to make things easier, but it often turned into a comedy of errors. State governments, even with good intentions, sometimes struggled with the logistics, leading to delays and frustration. It was like planning a big party, yet only to forget to send out the invites on time. Land disputes, slow bureaucracy, and constant policy changes have kept Nigerians on their toes, proving that turning a good idea into reality is way harder than it seems. The responsibility of land distribution was given to the premiers of the provinces. So if you want to borrow land, you have to apply at the premier's office in your province. They can lease you the land and give you a 99-year contract to use it. But your house isn't considered immovable property. If by bad luck you took a large piece of land and you can't use it all, the premier has the right to take it back. When you sell a house in Nigeria, you sell the house, not the land, because no one owns the land. You're given a PTO paper by the provincial government, which is just a letter saying you have the right to occupy it. These laws, patriots, were inherited from the British Empire, and even today in 2024, Nigerians don't own their land and don't know how to change these laws without risking civil war. So it's like everyone just agrees that it's better if no one owns anything. Life in Nigeria is heartbreaking, patriots. The way some Nigerians behave in foreign countries, it's not about showing off intelligence. It's about saying, kill me if you want, I've lost too much already. Their aggression isn't about arrogance. It's the pain of a people who have been through endless suffering, wars, religious conflicts, and a history of being denied the basic right to their own land. So, when they refuse to go back to Nigeria, they know there's no ancestral land waiting for them. It's just borrowed land, a place where no one truly owns anything. Remember this, patriots, the next time someone tries to throw shade our way about land ownership. And thank you for all your comments. I read them all the time. See you soon, patriots.